All right. The next tutorial I'm going to do, the fourth tutorial in the beginner series here, is working with type and gradients. And we're going to talk about the type tool and play around with it, and then also explore gradients a little bit. So I'm going to go File, New, and we're going to open up a new document. And we're just going to title this Name. And we're going to set our dimensions at, first I'm going to change mine to pixels here. And I'm going to set my dimensions at a 600 width, 400 height, 72 for the resolution. Make sure your color mode is set to RGB color, not grayscale. And I'm going to say my background contents, I'm going to say, are transparent. And I'm going to go ahead and press OK. Now I'm going to grab the type tool and I'm going to go ahead and type my name. So I'm going to click on the type tool, letter T. Here's my type tool settings. Pick a font style that you think is kind of cool. So I'm going to go Show Card Gothic. Up top here, you'll also see that you can click on this color swatch and pick a color. So I'm going to pick a color, and I'm going to click somewhere on my canvas, and I'm going to type my name. You can also see here with the type tool that I had a 100-point font, so that's why it's at the size that it is. I'm going to go Control T for free transform. I'm going to hold Shift, and I'm going to resize this so it's bigger. And I'm going to check mark that down to apply that transformation. Now you'll notice when you create a graphic with type that you'll have a different type of layer down here called the type layer. This type layer allows me to edit my text. So if I grab my text tool and I were to spell something wrong, I could come in here, I can click and I can adjust this. Okay, but it's not EN, it's ON. But I could change the text and stamp that down. Okay, this layer is a special type of layer called the type layer. So it can be edited. Now, your type settings. You got all kinds of different fonts here with your type tool. I can select my text. I can go up here. You can pick different styles of font depending upon, geez, I must have did a capital O or something there. Okay, so I can select it. I can change the style of font. You know, I could just be on this layer, hit the type tool. I don't have to select it per se, and I can still change the font to different things. So pick a style that you like, select a font style you like, and then we'll play with it. Now you'll see some fonts will have different settings here next to it, like bold italic. That style does not. This style does. It has a bold style as well as a regular style. Okay, not every font has that. Some have more than others. Like if we go to a very common font like, I don't know, Impact, right here. Well, I guess I'm wrong. Let's go up to Arial, I guess. I'm guessing that's going to have a bunch of different variations of the Arial font. So that's a pretty common font that you'll see. You'll have a bunch of different things. Now over here you have the size. So you can set your size by selecting it, typing in a different size. Okay, so I did 185. You know, how did I get to 185? I did Control T, held Shift, resized it. What it became is what it became. Now it's down here at 170. Okay, so anti-alias, AA, that's how the edges of this will look. Strong, smooth, crisp, sharp. You know, I usually just leave mine at sharp. It's not too big a deal. Then I have my alignment, so I can left align, I can center align, I can right align. And that'll just be where I like to always go center, but it doesn't really matter too much. You know, center so that where I click, I can center it off that base point. Then I have a color swatch right here where I can click and I can choose from 16.7 million different colors. So this is where I would change the color of my text. So that's just the same as when we were picking brush colors earlier. So you can pick your color you want to use. The next button right here is called warp. So if I click on that, I can warp my text. I can select and I could arch it, arc it up. You can adjust the bend, so you can make modifications to the arc. Horizontal or vertical arc. So how much bend do I want? Positive or negative? So I'm going to go positive. Horizontal distortion. Kind of weights the text one way or the other. Vertical distortion, top to bottom distortion. So you can make these adjustments with the warp text. There's a bunch of different ones, and each one you can adjust the bend, the horizontal and vertical distortions. So whichever one you want to use in those presets. I'm going to go to squeeze. I'm going to go ahead and say okay. Okay, so that's a quick text warp, how to bend text. Now this little button right here that looks like a calculator, if you click on that, you'll have more advanced text properties. Some of it we've already played with up here. Arial, bold, size, color. Okay, but some of these other things are spacing between lines, spacing between letters. So if I change what's called the leading, nothing's going to change because I only have one line, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, right here, this is kind of what we call our kerning. I might have to select something. I might have totally said that wrong. I think right here is, okay, they call this the tracking. That is the distance between your letters. So if I go negative, I'm going to squeeze them tighter. If I go positive, I'm going to spread those letters out more. Right here, I can stretch my text vertical. So if I went 150, it's going to make it taller. Horizontal, let's say I went 90, it would squish it together. Okay, there's italics, there is all caps, there's small caps, there's subscript, superscript, underline, strike through, all kinds of different preset settings you can mess with. Okay, so sometimes, let's just say I want to go small caps. I'm going to go right there, click on my move tool, I can move this guy around. I've played with and created some text. Okay, so the text tool is pretty straightforward. Now I go down and I look at this text. This is a type style of text. Now my text is not an actual layer. It is not made of pixels. If I want to make that text made of pixels so I can do different effects to it, okay, I'm going to have to do what we call rasterize the text. So I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to select where it says rasterize type. Okay, when I do that, it becomes a normal layer. Okay, now the downfall of that is if I misspell something, I can't fix it anymore because it has been turned into pixels. But the upside is I can go up to here to my different effects and I can apply different effects to this layer now. Distortions and all kinds of different cool stuff, okay, that we haven't really learned about yet. So this is now made of pixels, the text JSON. Now on a layer, you can do a couple different things. There's these locks. And the first lock right here, if I hover on it, says lock transparent pixels. So if I click on that, I have just locked everything that's transparent. So if I go grab my paintbrush and I take a look at my brush here and I set it at size 15, I'll leave the hardness at like 67% is good. You don't have to be perfect. I'm going to change my paint color to white. Press OK. And now I have this paintbrush, and you can see my brush size. But I can paint all day here on these and nothing happens because my transparent pixels are locked. But my orange text, that is not locked. So when I paint across that, it's putting white paint on my text. Okay, so I kind of just candy striped it. It locked the transparent pixels. Okay, so that's one way of helping you to be more precise in your painting. You're not sitting here going, oh, I can't touch the transparent part. Well, because it's locked anyways, you can't paint on it. Now, I might go add a layer effect. So go to my effects, put a stroke on this so I can see it better. We can adjust the size of the stroke, the tracing around the text, where I position it, inside or center it. I typically usually just do outside. The opacity, how much I can see through it, most of the time 100. And then the fill type, what color is this? Well, most strokes are black, but you could change the stroke color if you wanted to something different. Okay, I'm just going to go back to black and press OK. And then this layer style right here, the layer effect, I'm going to press OK. Now, a different type of layer style that you can apply to text, if I go down to effects here, is what we call bevel and emboss. So I can click on bevel and emboss, okay, and I can create what's called a bevel effect. It gives it a raised look, a three-dimensional type look, okay, and there's different types of bevels. There's outer bevels, there's inner bevels, there's embossing, there's pillow emboss, there is stroke emboss. So you have a bunch of different kinds. Inner bevel by far is what I use the most. I can change the depth of that bevel, change the direction of the bevel. I can change the size of the bevel. You make it too much so you can't tell really. So just kind of tweak that maybe a little bit. I can soften it, make it less steep basically. Change the angle that the bevel is shading onto my text. And I can also mess with a bunch of different gloss contours, these are called. Kind of the edge that I'm using to cut that bevel, which will change the look. Most of the time I stay with that straight up first one. So that is a bevel and an emboss. I can go ahead and press OK. You will now see the two effects that I've applied to that layer. I could hide those so you could see what it looks like with or without the stroke, with or without the bevel, with or without the effects, or hide the entire layer. So that is locking the transparent pixels. We talked about that right here, bevel and emboss and stroke. So we've got an intro to type. You've learned some advanced things about it. How to do some tweaking to your text and how to make it your own and customize it. I'm going to close this and I'm going to say no to save changes because I don't need this anymore. Now let's go file new again. We should have those same settings, 600 by 400. Okay, and I'm just going to name this web and press OK. And I'm going to grab my type tool and I'm going to go ahead and pick a color. And I'm going to click onto my canvas and I'm going to type web design. Like so. and I'm going to check that down. Now I can adjust this. I can pick a different style that I want to use. I'm going to bold this style and use it. I'm going to go Control T, hold Shift, grab a corner, drag it bigger, hit my check mark, stamp it down, and there it is. Now, there's another tool that we can use that we can add multiple colors. We have 16.7 million colors, but we haven't really talked about how to blend two different colors together. So I'm going to take and I'm going to put a layer on top of the text web design. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this layer, this new layer button right here by the trash can. And I'm going to go to what's called the gradient tool. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 down. You'll see that there's the gradient tool and then the paint bucket, which are pretty common tools that you'll use. I'm going to select the gradient tool. Here's my gradient tool. Now, notice your foreground and your background color. So I'm going to click on my background color and put red. And then I got blue in my foreground color. Because when you look at your gradients, there's some preset gradients that'll be built based upon these colors. And you'll see that's the first option up there, red and blue. Okay. And just to show you what a gradient looks like, I'm going to click and drag across. This is a gradient, two colors blending into each other. Now there's different settings up here for your gradients. This one is linear, there's radial. There is what's called angle, which, oh, I didn't click on it. That's radial. Angle, which I don't really like. I call this the laser beam, but it's called reflected. But you kind of can create a laser beam out of it. Depends how big you drag, how much you get. The next one I call star, but I think it's called diamond. Yep. And there's a diamond. So depending on how big a line you draw is what your gradient ends up looking like. Now you can also click back here and click on the second one, which is transparent with your foreground color. And you could drag gradients on top of gradients. Make a bunch of little stars here. Or you could go and make a bunch of little glow balls. Or make a bunch of little lasers coming across your screen. Depends how you're going to draw that little line, what the sides of the laser is going to look like. So you can actually build some pretty cool, backgrounds and stuff just with the gradient tool like that. Now, you click up top, you'll see some preset gradients. Okay, there's this red and green. There's this kind of rainbow colored one. All right, and there's this kind of horizon one, I think they call this one. It's supposed to look like the horizon, which it does. Blue sky, brown dirt. You got a rainbow again, and then you got this rainbow with transparent. So if you really want to kind of whack yourself out, you can play with this, like the Twilight Zone or something. But there's all kinds of settings, and you can create your own gradients. It's really simple to do. So, if I went based off my foreground and background color, okay, so I have that selected, and let's say I just click right here on the icon of blue and red, it'll go to the gradient editor. And you can actually create your own new gradients. You can take and you can see this is blue and red. All you got to do to add another color is click up here, and it adds a little stopper. Then you can click on that color. Oh, maybe I got to do it below. Yeah, below, and then I can click on that color. Hit yellow, and then press OK. And then I'm going to click right here, and I can add another color. So let's say I just add a little bit of purple. Press OK. Click here, add another color. Change the color of that. We'll go dark blue. And now I have a 5-color gradient. Name it. I'm going to name this Filges. I'll name it after me. It's my creation. And I'll go ahead and say OK. So now I could use that gradient that I just created. Select the different settings. There's my gradient. Whether you like it or not, that's up to you. Okay, so that's a gradient tool. Now, remember what we have here. We have this gradient over the top of the text web design, right? That's sitting underneath it. Now, there's something we can do that's kind of cool is I can clip this into that text. All I do is I have this text above, and I'm going to go right click on it, and I'm going to click Create Clipping Mask. And it will clip down into the layer that is below it. That's called a clipping mask. So you can clip a gradient of your own design into your own text. You know, can I come in here now and add effects? Sure. Go in here, add a stroke. There you go. Go in here, add bevel and emboss. Press OK. Wow. Look at that. Pretty cool. Your own design, your own setup. Nice text that you've created for that text web design. Now I'm going to close this and let's say no to save changes. I'm going to go File, New. I'm going to name this Eagle. And I'm going to press OK. And so here I have this layer. I'll grab my type tool. And it doesn't really matter what color I use here because we're going to clip into this. So I'm just going to go ahead and type the text Eagle. Stamp it down. I'm going to go Control T. I'm going to hold Shift, grab a corner, make this bigger, like so. Stamp it down. There's my text, Eagle. Now we're going to clip a picture of an eagle into the text of the eagle. So I need to put in a picture here of an eagle. So I'm going to go find that picture. I'm going to go File, Open, and I'm going to go into DHS Shared, Business Ed, Graphics, Unit 4, and I'm going to open up Eagle. Okay, and so I grab this picture of this eagle. I'm going to take that eagle and I'm going to place that eagle on top of the text Eagle. So I drag it, hover on that tab, drop it. It doesn't quite fit over it, so I'm going to go Control T, hold Shift, grab a corner, make this thing bigger, and I'm going to place it just like this. I will stamp this down by clicking the check mark. And I'm going to take and we're going to clip this picture into this text. So I'm going to right click on that picture, that layer, and go Create Clipping Mask. Sorry, my wife's calling here.
Hello?
Hello? Hey, I'm creating a tutorial. This is my office. I'm creating a tutorial here, so you're kind of messing up my tutorial for YouTube.
Fugelberg is going to take one of my sub jobs.
Okay, we'll see how that goes. Whoops. Dang it. Alright, so this got wrecked. Okay, sorry about that. My wife called, you know, things happen like that. I'm going to take and move this. You know, I can move this eagle inside the eagle text, but you can put a picture inside a text. That's kind of cool. I can still click on that type tool. You know, I could add, again, a stroke. Press OK. I could add a drop shadow or bevel and emboss. Press OK. That's pretty neat. Looks good. Okay, one last thing before we finish. We talked about masks a little bit during the last tutorial on layers. I'm going to go File, Open, and I'm in that same folder, and I'm going to open up Fade Out, the text fade out. Okay, so we have some text. Yeah, I did that by accident. We have some text, white text fade out. What effects do we have? We have a bevel and an emboss on it, just so I can kind of see what I got going on here. I have a layer behind it that is like water, and then the background layer is white. It's completely covered by the water anyways, so it doesn't even really need to be here. Now, we can add a mask, and to add a mask, we use this button that looks like a camera. Add Layer Mask. When I click on that again, I get this little white box. Okay, so the white is visible, the black is hidden or masked. So if I use a gradient on the mask, I can create a fade out effect. So if I go grab the gradient tool, make sure I click on the mask though here. My foreground and background color are black and white. I can click here and get that set that way. I can flip them back and forth by clicking on this little flip button. I can go up. I know that my first, click the drop down list, my first gradient is black and white, so I select black and white, and then I come down here and I drag across this, and I can create a fade out effect. So if I went from the middle and drug down, I could fade this image out depending upon how I drag onto that image. So I'm going to go from bottom, drag up, and get it to look the way I want it to look. You can see on the mask hides, okay, gray becomes faded, white is still visible. And it only is applying to the text. It is not doing anything to this layer. Layer 1 that looks like water. Okay, hope you enjoyed that tutorial.